wanted to have a little Bible study tonight on Elijah and Elisha. Doing some reading about it and found some pretty neat little things in the Bible about both of their stories, and just wanted to share with you guys tonight what I read because I thought it was just pretty interesting. And what's wrong with learning some more stuff about Elijah and Elisha, two prophets of God, and both equally remarkable in their own rights. But anyway, we know Elijah came first and was followed by Elisha. I know it can be confusing those two because they're so similar, but both prophets of God for Israel, and both had pretty interesting but quite different journeys in their time. I know they had a bit of overlap there, but we'll start off in 1 Kings chapter 18 and verse 21. And now this is the story of the Elijah and the prophets of Baal. And Elijah came to all the people and said, "How long will you falter between the two opinions? If the Lord is God, follow him, but if Baal, follow him." But the people answered him not a word. Then Elijah said to the people, "I alone am left a prophet of the Lord, but Baal's prophets are 450 men. Therefore, let them give us 2 bulls, and let them choose 1 bull for themselves, cut it in pieces, and lay it on the wood, but put no fire under it. And I will prepare the other bull and lay it on the wood, but put no fire under it. Then you call upon the name of your gods, and I will call upon the name of the Lord. And the God who answers by fire, he is God." So all the people answered and said, "It is well spoken." So setting up the stage here, Elijah, I guess, puts a test to the prophets of Baal that's fairly simple, fairly logical. Everyone agrees to the rules. There's no opportunity for shenanigans or tomfoolery or no tricks, and quite simple. And everyone agrees. Okay, yep, that's a good test. Let's go. And I'm actually, well, I guess it just shows the prophets of Baal their conviction that they were willing to go ahead with it. So obviously, in their hearts, they truly believed that Baal was going to answer by fire. Otherwise, they'd try and get out of that and try and come up with some other plan that might work in their favor. But obviously, both Elijah and Baal both fully committed to their cause. And verse 25, now Elijah said to the prophets of Baal, "Choose 1 bull for yourselves and prepare it first, for you are many, and call on the name of your God, but put no fire under it." So even still, Elijah gave the prophets of Baal the opportunity to choose the best looking bull. So there's no chance afterwards they can go, "Well, you got the good bull, so that's why Baal didn't answer, because you got the better bull. You sacrificed the better." See, let them go first. Let them pick the best bull, probably cut down the best tree, got the best wood. Give them every chance they got. 26. So they took the bull which was given to them, and they prepared it and called on the name of Baal from morning even till noon, saying, "O Baal, hear us." But there was no voice, no one answered. And then they leaped about the altar which they had made. And so it was at noon that Elijah mocked them and said, "Cry aloud, for he is a god. Either he is meditating, or he is busy, or he is on a journey, or perhaps he is sleeping and must be awakened." So they cried aloud and cut themselves, as was their custom, with knives and lances, until the blood gushed upon them. And that little passage, it kind of gives us a bit of an insight into Elijah's kind of his personality. He was willing to kind of poke fun and kind of wind them up a little bit, and um, you could only do that um, with the confidence, knowing that God was going to answer him. You could only poke fun. Like, there'd have to be absolutely no doubt in your mind that the Lord was going to light Elijah's altar on fire, because he's just making fun of them at this point, knowing what's to come. I get he already knows what the result is going to be before they do. They just haven't realized it yet. Okay, in 28. So they cried aloud and cut themselves, as was their custom with 29. And when midday was past, they prophesied until the time of the offering of the evening sacrifice, but there was no voice. No one answered. No one paid attention. Then Elijah said to all the people, "Come near to me." So all the people came near to him, and he repaired the altar of the Lord that was broken down. And Elijah took 12 stones according to the number of the tribes of the sons of Jacob, to whom the word of the Lord had come, saying, "Israel shall be your name." Then with the stones he built an altar in the name of the Lord, and he made a trench around the altar large enough to hold 2 seahs of seed. And he put the wood in order, cut the bull in pieces and laid it on the wood, and said, "Fill 4 water pots with water and pour it on the burnt sacrifice and on the wood." Then he said, "Do it a second time," and they did it a second time. And he said, "Do it a third time," and they did it a third time. So now the altar and the sacrifice is well and truly drenched. So there's absolutely no way possible that Baal could say that Elijah was some kind of trickster or magician. Uh, So in verse 35, so the water ran all around the altar, and he also filled the trench with water. And it came to pass at the time of the offering of the evening sacrifice that Elijah the prophet came near and said, "Lord God of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, let it be known this day that you are God in Israel, and I am your servant, that I have done all these things at your word. Hear me, O Lord. Hear me, that this people may know that you are the Lord God, and that you have turned their hearts back to you again." Then the fire of the Lord fell and consumed the burnt sacrifice and the wood and the stones and the dust, and it licked up the water and that was in the trench. So with this, paints a very vivid picture here, and you can tell that Elijah um, has calls upon the power of the Lord in a very spectacular and miraculous way, and called upon the Lord, and the fire of the Lord came down and consumed the sacrifice. As many times previously in the Old Testament, the Lord has shown himself through fire, like the burning bush that Moses came, and the pillar of fire that led the children of Israel. And so the Lord has this big thing that everyone could see, and no doubt, and like this huge miracle. And it's almost like all of the miracles, or the things that Elijah did with all these big spectacles and these amazing miracles that affected many people. I've got a kind of a list here of the miracles that Elijah performed. He called in a drought amongst the land. The miracle of the bread and the oil. The resurrection of the widow's son. The fire on the altar with the prophets of Baal. Breaking the drought. 100 men, like 2 lots of 50 soldiers, trying to capture him, consumed by fire, and then being taken away, raised up by God in the chariot with fire. And so these are all kind of huge, big, things that everyone can see, and it's quite different from Elisha. Another interesting thing I found. We'll just go over to 2 Kings chapter 2 and verse 9. And this is kind of towards the end, when Elijah's time is up. And so it was when they had crossed over that Elijah said to Elisha, "Ask, what may I do for you before I am taken away from you?" Elisha said, "Please let a double portion of your spirit be upon me." So he said, "You have asked a hard thing. Nevertheless, if you see me when I am taken from you, it shall be so for you. But if not, it shall not be so." Then it happened as they continued on and talked that suddenly a chariot of fire appeared with horses of fire and separated the two of them. And Elijah went up by a whirlwind into heaven. And Elisha saw it, and he cried out, my father, the chariot of Israel and its horsemen." So he saw him no more, and took a hold of his own clothes and tore them in 2 pieces. He also took up the mantle of Elijah that had fallen from him, and went back and stood by the bank of the Jordan. So the one request that Elisha asked of Elijah was to have a double portion of his spirit. And doing a bit of research and reading into it, it seemed like that was literally, like, I counted like the 7 major miracles that Elijah performed, but then reading through 2 Kings, it looks like Elisha got 14. So kind of like literally doubled. And then if you look at all the prophecies and whatnot, Elijah, I counted 14 and Elisha had 28. So he asked for a double portion and then got the double of the miracle in the end. And then we'll go to 2 Kings chapter 4 verse 8. So the miracles that Elisha performed and worked through the Lord, it seemed, instead of being big spectacles, are more like personal, one-on-one. Like, he went around helping people out individually, and rather than putting on big shows that affected many people. So in 2 Kings chapter 4 verse 8, now it happened one day that Elisha went to Shunem, where there was a notable woman, and she persuaded him to eat some food. So it was, as often as he passed by, he would turn in there to eat some food. And she said to her husband, "Look now, I know that this is a holy man of God who passes by us regularly. Please let us make a small upper room on the wall, and let us put a bed for him there, and a table and a chair and a lampstand. So it'll be whenever he comes to us, he can turn in there." So we got this family that kind of seen Elisha regularly, and offered him food and whatnot, and a place to camp out. And it happened one day that he came there. He turned into the upper room and lay down there. Then he said to Gehazi, his servant, call this Shunammite woman." When he had called her, she stood before him, and he said to him, "Say now to her, look, you have been concerned for us with all this care. What can I do for you? Do you want me to speak on your behalf to the king or to the commander of the army?" She answered, "I dwell among my own people." So he said, "What then is to be done for her?" And Gehazi answered, "Actually, she has no son, and her husband is old." So he said, "Call her." And when he had called her, she stood in the doorway. Then he said, "About this time next year you shall embrace a son." And she said, No, my lord, man of God, do not lie to your maidservant." But the woman conceived and bore a son when the appointed time had come, of which Elisha had told her. So now we just see this amazing miracle. This woman who recognized Elisha was a prophet of God, and has kind enough to put him up and give him a place to stay while he was on the road, and he had given her the prophecy about having a child, and it came to pass through the power of the Lord. But it keeps on going. It keeps let's see, and then we'll go down to verse 18. And the child grew. Now it happened one day that he went out to his father to the reapers, and he said to his father, my head, my head. So he said to a servant, carry him to his mother. When he had taken him and brought him to his mother, he sat on her knees till noon, and then he died. She went up and laid him on the bed of the man of God, shut the door upon him, and went out. And then she called to her husband and said, please send me one of the young men and one of the donkeys, that I may run to the man of God and come back. So he said, why are you going to him today? It's neither the new moon nor the Sabbath. And she said, it is well. So we move down to verse 27. Now when she came to the man of God at the hill, she caught him by the feet, but Gehazi came near to push her away. But the man of God said, let her alone, for her soul is in deep distress, and the Lord has hidden it from me and has not told me. So she said, did I ask a son of my Lord? Did I not say, do not deceive me? And then he said to Gehazi, get yourself ready and take my staff in your hand and be on your way. If you meet anyone, do not greet him. If anyone greets you, do not answer him. Lay my staff on the face of the child. So she's in quite a bit of distress, as the Lord had given her a son, and she was, she didn't believe Elisha when he first told her, and then now, like, something's happened to her son, and he's passed away, and so she's, like, why did you give me this only to take it away? Which we know that the Lord doesn't, provide for us or bless us just to, give something to us just to take it away. There's always an end to it, and a miracle, or an opportunity to give the Lord the glory. Now in verse 32, go down to 32. When Elisha came into the house, there was the child lying dead on his bed. He went in, therefore, shut the door behind the two of them, and prayed to the Lord. And he went up and lay on the child, and put his mouth on his mouth, and his eyes on his eyes, and his hands on his hands, and stretched himself out on the child, and the flesh of the child became warm. He returned and walked back and forth in the house, and again went up and stretched himself out on him. And then the child sneezed 7 times, and the child opened his eyes. And he called to Gehazi and said, call the Shunammite woman. So he called her, and when she came to him, he said, pick up your son. So she went in, fell at his feet, and bowed to the ground. She picked up her son and went out. And so Elisha called upon the Lord, and the child was raised up, and it was an amazing miracle, and just reaffirming that the Lord doesn't give us things to take things away. He doesn't provide for us only to leave us in ruin. There's always a plan. There's always an end to it. And I know that was a bit of reading there, but that's like kind of the theme of all of Elisha's miracles, is that they're all very personal and one-on-one, and he's dealing directly with people. And just going through the list, he heals the waters in the fields of Jericho. He delivered a message from God to Jehoshaphat. Provides a widow oil to sell to pay off her debts. Provides a child to the Shunammite woman. Raises the woman's son up when he dies. Purifies a pot of stew that had been poisoned. Feeds 100 men. Heals Naaman's leprosy. Cursing Gehazi with leprosy for being greedy. retrieves the floating axe head from the river, um, restores the Shunammite woman's lands after she had to leave from famine, um, blinded the Syrian raiders and sent them away unharmed, ending the conflict with Israel, scaring away the Syrians with the sound of chariots, and finally, after he passed away, Elisha's bones revived a sick man just by touching them. So all pretty amazing miracles. Um, and looking at like Elijah and Elisha and the way the Lord worked, it kind of I kind of draw some parallels between the Old and the New Testament, and it's like Elisha had these big miracles by fire and like direct engagement, and then Elisha's more personal, like more like um, kind of like peace and forgiveness, and it kind of like draw the parallels before like Old and New Testament. Um, it's just amazing to see all these um, themes that are just consistent throughout the Bible that just reassure us of God's power and what He does. Like all of these miracles weren't just exclusive to Elisha or Elijah. That we can read these stories and be encouraged by it and know that we have the same God working in our lives today. And it's just it's really amazing just seeing what the Lord has to say and just be uplifted by it. So I like to leave the word there.